recording, folks, after this, after we're complete. So, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us today. So, where we're going to begin, the purpose of today's webinar, is to give a high-level overview of GA4 and to provide some recommendations on how to set it up, how to implement it. You know, I'm sure some of you have already implemented it. Some of you may have not. Google likes to call this the migration. They are setting up migrations for you. It is not a migration. It is an implementation. So I hate that language that they use. And I want to be clear that it's a new platform that we are going to be using, that we use for marketing analytics purposes. So here is what we're covering today: who we are, why they're ending UA, what is GA4, how do we prepare, what's possible. Then we'll have a quick working session, Q&A, and then talk next steps. These all represent the points of sale. We use a lot of sailing metaphors because who are we? First, I'm the founder of Zen Anchor Digital. Zen Anchor is a digital marketing agency that specializes in the health and wellness and insurance industries. We also do some work in e-commerce. We've been Google partnered, Facebook partnered, now Meta partnered for years. Been around since 2014. I started what is called Analytics Mates last year because of some of the issues that exist within GA4, which we're going to cover in a moment. The premise of Analytics Mates is the following. We wanted to create a support system where we could help others get GA4 set up and take the reporting functionality that exists within our agency and break it out and offer it as its own service to any sort of organization, any sort of company, a Shopify website, small business, mid-sized business, or larger. So a lot of sailing metaphors because I sail. I also used to do Second City and I play hockey. So there you go. Few of the members of our team on the Analytics Mate side. Our first hire actually was a guy named Ken Bandong, who's found in the middle here. He was a manager of the Google Analytics 360 team. So we actually just brought on another guy named Mark, who also came from Google. So we are all GA4 certified. But the other thing that's worth emphasizing is we're ex-Googlers, and from the 360 team work for us. And so you're getting our recommendations, but you know, they work directly for Google before we brought them in. So why are they ending Universal Analytics? Let's touch on that first. Here's the official reason. The official reason is that they built a better platform. The unofficial reason is that they have to move over to a new platform because of the end of cookies and the way in which data tracking has become more challenging because of privacy laws from a regulatory standpoint, but also because of consumer trends. Users want to protect and not share as much data. And so what Google decided to do was build an event-based tracking model with GA4. So there's some pretty significant differences between this and UA because it was cookie-based. Now it's more event-based. We're going to get into the details of that in a moment. So, you know, you guys are aware the big change happened on July 1st. You had to move over because Universal Analytics was going to end. Again, we're a Google partner, but we are not Google. So I will say this: Universal Analytics is still registering data in some of our properties. So they have told people that it will stop by July 1st. That is not 100% the case. So regardless, you have to switch over. But it is funny that there's still some UA data that is populating. So the three reasons why they ended UA: cookies are over, the digital customer journey has changed, people are not just buying directly through a website, they're going through multiple devices, And regardless of cookies ending, privacy is important, and privacy is being taken much more seriously by Google and by tech companies in general. So let's talk about why it's different. First, I want you guys to be aware of the auto migration. Has anyone here done the auto migration for GA4, or was it all manually done? Or maybe you haven't migrated yet. I'm just curious if anybody has done an auto migration. You could just leave a message in the chat. Or maybe not. Okay. I'm not a fan of the auto migration. It gives you the bare minimum of limited data. It will kind of screw up some of the event tracking. It's better than nothing. But be careful with some of these automated migrations, and we're going to talk about what you need to configure in a moment. So let's talk about GA4, why it's better. Biggest benefit, in my view, is the measuring the users across different devices and channels. It's also giving you enhanced measurement insights. So there were a lot of features that were available for Google Analytics 360 customers. For your knowledge, if you're not familiar, Google Analytics 360 was a premium service that businesses paid for to have access to. It would cost, 60 grand a year, in some cases more, depending on how much data. A lot of those features related to measurement insights are now being implemented for free in GA4. So that is a major benefit. They're using a lot of their machine learning and I guess some of like this AI functionality, more the cutting edge elements of Google are being implemented within GA4 for even like the free level. There's also deeper integration with Google Ads and display and video 360. So I think it's critical if you're a media buyer on Google to have this integration in place. 6 of the biggest benefits, it's scalable. We now are able to export data to BigQuery. We could do deeper analysis from there. It's updated more frequently. Google Universal Analytics was not updated that regularly. It's been around since 2003. It was time for them to implement a new system because now we're going to get those ongoing updates. Machine learning is implemented. I mentioned that there are clearer insights because we're able to collect more event-based data. So we will be able to gather clearer insights, even though it's maybe not obvious when you first open it up, because it's more customizable. So we are able to create your own types of funnel reports, your own types of acquisition and engagement reports. Also, with audience streams, it really makes the media buying and retargeting from a business objective standpoint much stronger, because now you can create separate audience segments that can then be integrated into Google Ads. Rough example of this would be in the past, you would create remarketing audiences within Google Ads for somebody that added to cart and they started the buying process. If they abandon the cart, you show them, you retarget to show them ads. You can create those audience streams directly within GA4 now. So it's not just limited to Google Ads. And because you can create those separate audience streams, you're able to then look at how your abandoned cart audience interacts with the rest of your site. So it's a pretty neat analysis tool that is embedded in the product now. Big thing with GA4 is that there's deeper data integration across the board. Essentially now we're able to export data, turn it over into BigQuery, and experiment and play with it quite a bit more. So that allows us to make smarter marketing decisions. So let's get into some of the differences. First, the measurement model. We talked about it, event-based versus paid versus cookie-based. The second is attribution. How attribution from source of traffic and conversion is measured now goes across devices And so it is not just based off of that one session when a user visits the site. Of course, there's big changes to the interface and the reporting. There is an element of user ID and protection of privacy. I touched on BigQuery and machine learning as well. So let's talk about how users are different. Users on Universal Analytics, that means an individual that visits your website. On GA4, it represents a user that is logged to any sort of an event. An event could mean page view. By default, it would be page view. And so let's get into how that user looks slightly different. So on the left, seen here, is the session-centric view that Universal Analytics used. So a user would have a session. That session would then engage on the website. They would click around. They might download something, or they might start the buying process. Now, a user, there is no session middle layer. So a user can go and interact immediately, and that is, we're removing the requirement of, being on the website or being a website session, because the idea is that one user can be measured across their phone and the website. So me, Gary.Spagnoli@gmail.com is logged in. I go on my phone and I visit analyticsmates.com. And then I go here on my MacBook to analyticsmates.com. Google can now see that as one user that has visited the site. In Universal Analytics, that would count as two. It would be seen as two because they're coming from a mobile device and a desktop. Here are some examples of how it does differentiate from UA. So this shows how on UA, all hits are anyone without a user ID. So we usually don't have a user ID being tracked along it. Here on GA4, there's typically an ID attributed back to that individual. And so we're able to see them across those different platforms. Another big change here is conversions. Conversions is probably the area that's most critical, the most critical element of your analytics setup, because you want to, of course, measure impactful actions that your prospects or visitors are taking on your website, whether they're becoming a lead, whether they're becoming a sale. In Universal Analytics, these were called goals, and you were limited to about 20 goals. So in GA4, you can now create up to 30 separate conversions. It's also way easier to create conversions within GA4. In Universal Analytics, you would have to set up either something within Google Tag Manager, but then you would create a goal based off of you visited this page or you took this type of action. What's pretty neat about GA4 is because it is event-based, you will see a listing of all the events, and I'll show this in the platform in a moment. You will see a listing of all of the events that are happening on the site, everything that's being fired, and you could just check off a toggle to define them as a conversion. For example, you'll see page view events and people are visiting the page. You could check to say every page view is conversion. That's probably not relevant here because page views, they're not actually making a business goal or something. But you could set page view with this page path, do it directly within GA4. So if they landed on a page that shows thank you, like thank_you, you can mark that as conversion. We'll go through it in a moment. Another big difference is Universal Analytics had loads of predefined reports. GA4 doesn't have as many. It requires quite a bit of your own. That's why I started Analytics Mates, and I'm going to give you guys all the reports that we built because they're free and you just duplicate them. And yeah, by default, though, it's frustrating because you don't have the same level of Universal Analytics. It's not the same view, but there's some solutions around that, which I'm going to show later on this presentation. Okay, so let's talk about how we get set up here. we're going to talk high level, then I'm going to break it down, get into the minutia of it, or actually do it. First, you're going to enter the discovery phase. So what's good about having a new platform is that you get to identify your website and business goals. You get to start with a clean slate here. And so you want to define and write down what are the key conversions that you do want to track. You also want to make sure that all of your funnel is clear during that discovery process. The second phase, though, that's when we enter into the planning. Here we audit and review the past Universal Analytics setup to make sure that any of those classic reports that you have, we want to make sure that we're getting ready to migrate them over or create something similar. So you go through your old account to see what can be implemented within GA4. Then we get into the actual implementation. We make sure that all key events are in place. We make sure that we have the appropriate filters. We are limiting certain IP addresses. Phase 4 is testing. So make sure that those conversion events are actually firing properly. And then the ongoing work, which marketers love and analysts love, which is actually being able to use that data for analysis. So weekly reporting, weekly analysis, you could schedule these types of reports. So let's talk about the bare minimum setup, and I'm going to pull it up directly within the platform in a second. First, you create the property. I highly recommend installing it via Google Tag Manager. And these are, again, are not official Google things. Our recommendations are based on our experience. Bare minimum, you need to update the data retention to 14 months. By default, data is only retained for 2 months within GA4, which is wild, and probably a cost savings measure by Google. You also want to turn off any of the automated Universal Analytics events, and you have to start checking off the conversion events. Let's do this directly in the platform together to show you where some of these elements are. So I hope you guys can see my screen. So the first place you're going to want to do, you want to go to analytics.google.com. We're going to look at analyticsmates.com specifically. And you're going to want to create a new property. That property, once you create it, we can call this test demo for now. We're going to set the currency to US dollar. We do not want to create a UA property because I can't anymore. Actually, a year ago, we used to want to do this, but not necessary. You'll select all of your business details. I'm going to cut through this, though, because I want to show directly in the account. Maybe we'll do it. Maybe we will do this. Let's just check off arts and entertainment. Let's say it's to generate leads. We're going to set this up on web. We'll have just our domain set up, and the stream name will be the website, or in this case, it would be analyticsmates.com. And then you would create that initial stream. For you to actually implement this, you'll then go to, let's create the stream together. Google Tag Manager, and implement, if you have Google Tag Manager installed on your site, you just need this measurement ID. And so you would head on over to google.com/tag manager, and there is a there's the ability to add a tag for GA4 directly, but I don't really want to get that deep into that here. What I really want to show is some of the things that we would check off right when we get into the account. Give me 1 second. So this will be found under admin. You are going to want to go under. So just like this, update data retention of 14 months is found under the admin section, data settings, data retention. By default, this will be on 2 months. Switch this over to 14 months. You just want to be able to collect more data. Next, after that, you want to make sure that the events that you're getting on your data stream are found under this configuration section. By default, you will have form interactions will be checked off. We want to turn this off. Turn off form interactions. Why? It will check. Google does its best to automatically see if any laid forms happen. And in some cases, the forms aren't actually going through. You need to be able to confirm that the lead actually went through. And so it's just very buggy. So I highly recommend turning off the form interactions as well. In addition to that, after you make sure the forms are set, the data retention's in place, you'll want to look at the stream of events that are coming through. So 1 second. Oh, I'm surprised we're not seeing the traffic come through on this view right now. I'll show you guys under here. So here is a listing of some of the events that are happening right now in real time. We did have 2 webinar signups that just happened over the last few minutes. You'll want to make sure that you're getting page view data to come through and session start data. These are some of the default events that are in place. So you'll do this under the debug view, but you could also see this under the real-time view once it's implemented on the site. All right, bare minimum, again, data retention and making sure that the forms are turned off. Now, in terms of conversion creation, so if we were to say that we want to track at analyticsmates.com any of those website visitors that turn into leads because they wanted to get free access to our dashboards, the way in which you would do this is by going under the events themselves. 1 second, guys. See if I can find this under here. No. Here we go. So it's found under the admin section, under your property, under events. You will see under this view all of the events that have happened, I guess by default, the last 28 days. And you'll want to check off which of these events that are coming through should be accounting as a conversion. So rather than the old process of like going into Google Tag Manager and having to create a custom event every time, there are default events that are happening on your site, and you want to review all of them that are coming through and identifying to see if any should be marked as those conversions. So this is one of the easiest ways to turn them into a conversion. The other way is the old school way, which is going into Google Tag Manager, creating a trigger for when this button is clicked or this form completion is made. But I highly recommend just looking at the existing events and then checking those off to turning them into conversions at first. All right, let's talk a little bit about what's possible with some of the reporting. What we highly recommend is using Looker or Data Studio now for building out those visualizations. I'm going to pull up some of these reports in a moment because you guys can see by default, the reporting, it's pretty bare bones. There's an acquisition area, there's an engagement area, but we missed the old version of Universal Analytics where I get just a little bit clearer, hey, I want to understand how my organic search is doing, for example, or this new email campaign that went out. We highly recommend using Looker and Data Studio. And I'm going to give you guys some of those sample reports in a moment. In addition to that, there's a lot more you can do in terms of actually building out the funnels and the visualizations of how that traffic is coming to your site and interacting. So let's pull up some of these reports. Here's something that I think many of you guys may like. Let's pull this example. This was created by a company called Upmise Analytics, this dashboard. Guess what, guys? It's GA Classic mode. So it'll allow you to review your data from the same view as Universal Analytics. And so they did their best to try to copy the original design. So it will allow us to look at our acquisition channels and specific campaigns. So if you don't really want to learn anything within GA4, I'm going to send you guys this link so that you can just copy the GA4 Classic mode. That's one of the approaches. What we recommend, though, is actually utilizing Looker for building your own custom report. So this is an example of what we built out for ourselves. This shows us the total amount of traffic and leads we're getting per month for the analyticsmates.com site. Typically, I look at this pretty much every day, trying to better understand what our conversion rate is. Here, we also want to look at what our top acquisition channels are. The majority of our leads and conversions are coming from SEO, Google Organic specifically. Again, I'll share these reports. You guys can just duplicate them and then embed, add yourself as a data source so that you can see your own acquisition and how, which source of channels are doing well for you. We also tend to look at our engaged sessions. An engaged session is defined as being more than 10 seconds, which is a little bit different than what we had on Universal Analytics. You can customize that, but an engaged session is, I would consider it more valuable than any sort of page view or any session that's coming to the site. So engaged sessions are usually a little bit more critical. This report also allows us to look at the demographics that GA4 is doing its best to provide. But you can see, again, this real-time data, we are mostly in the unknown space. So GA4 still has some issues, guys. But it does give us directionality. So at least gives us signals as to what may be performing better. And we could see that I'm getting more men to visit the site than women. So there is some directionality there as to who is engaging. And in this case, we have a landing page report, which breaks out just what are our top pages on the site over this period. So let's get back into this presentation. I want to open it up to the folks that are here for any questions that you've had regarding your GA4 implementation. Let me turn off this screen share just for a moment. If you have a question, just leave it in the chat. Are you struggling with something specifically in terms of trying to pull certain data, certain elements of data, a certain report? I want to open it up to the folks that are here. Silence. Okay. All right, guys. Let's get back. Okay, cool. Yeah, we could get into that now if you want, but give me 1 second. Go to screen 1. Let's get back into screen share here. Let me show you guys some of these other reports, which you might find valuable. Another example that I like is the, I think it's this 2-minute report. No. This is So this was provided by Power My Analytics. This is another great example of a report you can use for, using some of the data visualizations rather than the traditional interface within GA4. I'm trying to find, I don't think I have this in front of me. There's a report we have that allows you to compare Universal Analytics versus GA4. I'll have to find that link and I'll email it to you guys after. But a woman, I think her name is Krista Selden, she worked on a report that allowed you to compare your Universal Analytics data versus GA4 just side by side, because you'll always see some level of discrepancy here. So all of these, though, I highly recommend implementing on your site, depending on what your objective is, depending on what your needs are. This is an example of one of our SEO dashboards that's being built off of the GA4 data. We're pulling in our keywords directly from Google Search Console, but it is also implemented into GA4 as well. So we'll get this over to you guys also. But yeah, that's kind of it in terms of the, I want to open this up for any questions before I talk a little bit more about Analytics Mates. Does anybody have questions about their setup? All right, let's see, Fernando. I tried to download sessions and users crossing with source medium to analyze, but when I got in the CSV, all the data was duplicate. Is that normal or a bug? It depends on how that data is organized. It is not, it's likely not a bug. What happens is sometimes when we're downloading data, there is some duplicative for one user can have like multiple page views, and sometimes that causes issues for that source medium. So it may not be a bug, but you could email it over to me and I can review, and our team can review to see if there's another way in which we could pull this. Can you explain about the parameters configuration in events? There are more details than my events can track. So there's something that happens within GA4 related to cardinality, where if it sees a string appended to an event that is too long, it rejects it almost completely. And so I find, though, that there are ways in which you could add a filter into GA4 to ignore the extra parameters at the end of an event. And so I can send you some documentation on it. Essentially, though, there's a way for you to filter anything that is appended to the end of an event. And you do this under the debug view. So it would be dependent on, like the event name. So I'm not seeing the data come through in my debug view right now, but there is a way for you to filter out the extra things. I had trouble exporting and printing a custom-made report. It saves to my library, but can't be printed or exported. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's see if I can do this with you right now. So this is our Analytics Mate side. Here's one of our funnel reports that we built out. So there are a couple ways in which you could export the data found in the top right corner for Google Sheets, TSV, CSV, PDF, or all tabs. Also, there are ways in which we could set up email configurations, but it should be found up here in the top right for exporting data. It's taking a moment to load. But yeah, this is an exact screenshot of the PDF found here. All right. Cool. Any other questions? How else can I help you guys? All right. So let me send over the link to the presentation. You guys will get this via email as well. I'll also send over some of these Data Studio dashboards that you may want to implement for your site. Those are found in the presentation. I really think that this GA4 Classic mode will provide a lot of value to some of you, so I'll send you guys the link immediately. But before we wrap things up, I just want to let you guys know that, our team, we are here for support. What we did was we took our Zen Anchor digital agency and broke out the reporting functionality to be this service of analytics mates. GA4 certified. We are one of the top digital marketing companies in Chicago. But the analytics mates business, we started only $999 per month for just ongoing GA4 support. And we do offer special pricing when it's more than one website. We provide those ongoing reporting needs. We provide weekly insights, and we provide any sort of custom pixel tracking and tagging. So it's full Google Tag Management support and GA4 support. Think of it as like getting your own assistant, analytics assistant, to help you out. But I think that's it. So thank you guys all for coming today. I know we're cutting a little bit short, but I usually like to have the last half hour for working. I'll send you guys all the recording and send you the links. But thank you so much. You have my email. Just reply to the email if you have any other questions. We're going to continue to do these workshops every couple of weeks. This was a repeat of our last minute GA4 session from the beginning of July and at the end of June, because it was such a hit. But our next is going to be more focused probably on SEO. We're going to talk about how to utilize GA4 for SEO. That'll be our next webinar. And then after that, we'll probably get into Shopify and e-commerce a little bit deeper there. So cool. Thank you guys so much. And yeah, let's talk via email. That was really me too, like just email, respond back to me. So there's not as much automation here in terms of some of the webinar stuff. But yeah, I'll keep you guys updated. Thank you again. We'll talk online. Cheers.